So I've silenced the intro to this video because basically it's bloody annoying and it's just more propaganda. Flat Earther CGI, look at it. CGI, they complain about NASA, but they're good for a bit of CGI themselves. So let's hear what he has to say.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jeranism back with another video for you today. Let's discuss the moon landings, or the lack thereof. I find it so important because if NASA went to the moon, then they know it all. The size of the sun, the distance, the gravity, the orbits, they know it all. But if we didn't go, well, that changes it all. Let's read a quote here first to start off.
So he laid down the foundation for the video and expressed that he believes that the moon landings were fake and all this kind of rubbish, and he reckons he's going to prove it. And well, in this video we'll just look at the very first thing that he brings up, and I'll prove that that is a plain lie, that he's deceived you, and that we'll get to the truth. Right now in this section he just quotes 3 quotes from Carl Sagan and tries to use them in the context that the scientific community is lying to us and that they put stuff in textbooks. So let's see what he says next.
And so that's what I'm doing. Being skeptical, asking questions. Like, why are the facts around the moon landing easily forgotten?
They aren't.
Let's start with Neil Armstrong and his greatest memory, that first step. One small step. It was a step, right?
Yeah, it was actually.
Or was it a leap? Let's see if he can recall.
Men walk on moon. The stage, the scene was this. Sunday, July 20th, as for the first time in our world's history, at 4:18, landing on the moon. After several hours in the module, at 10:56 p.m., one Neil Armstrong emerged, stepped down, placed his foot on the moon, and said,
"A small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
and why did you say those words, Neil Armstrong?
Well, it was a natural thing. It was a step off the lunar module, a very short step, only about 6 inches down from the step. But more than 1/3 Americans have been working for a decade to make this happen, and it had been a lifelong dream. So it was a big step for all of those people.
So you may have noticed there that Armstrong said that more than 1/3 Americans had worked for a decade to make this happen, and that it was a big step for all of those people. He also says it was a small 6-inch step. Now listen to this.
Okay, I can leave that 1 foot up there and then both hands down to about the 4th rung up. There you go. Okay, now I think I'll do the same. A little more. Not another inch. There, you got it? That's a good step. Yeah. About a 3-footer.
Very short step, only about 6 inches down from the step.
That's a good step. Yeah. About a 3-footer.
About 6 inches.
About a 3-footer.
About 6 inches.
About a 3-footer.
About 6 inches.
Beautiful view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation.
Well, that sure is interesting. 3 feet or 6 inches. It was definitely one or the other, I guess.
Really, it's not that hard to work out. I done a little bit of research, which Jeranism should have done before he shot his mouth off, and I found this image of Buzz Aldrin coming down the ladder. If you look at the bottom of the image, you'll see the landing foot of the lunar module. Now a closer look, you can see it there again, and he's actually standing on the pad. And this is what Neil would have jumped down onto. If we look at this image, you can see Neil with his left foot on the bottom rung of the ladder and his other foot on the landing. He would have taken a 6-inch step off the landing onto the surface of the moon. And this is a 6-inch step that he was referring to. So it seems that Neil Armstrong's recollection was completely correct, and Jeranism is just creating unnecessary doubt when all he needs to do is a little bit of research before he makes his videos. So next he talks about Buzz Aldrin's mother committing suicide and says that it was because of Buzz's imminent fame, because she committed suicide before the moon landings. And basically, it's only a very small part of the story. In reality, she had severe depression, as did her father, Buzz's grandfather, who committed suicide before Buzz was born. Buzz also had periods where he suffered from depression. So this is a bit of a cop-out, in my opinion, on Jeranism's part, in actually being so unscrupulous as to discuss such things and link it to any kind of conspiracy theory. So from here on, he gets to talk about something to do with Eyes Wide Shut and the 30th anniversary of the moon landings, and it being 666 days or something before the turn of the millennium, and all this, crazy talk. And he also discusses Neil Armstrong and Buzz suing various toy companies and whatnot for having likenesses of them, and just a whole bunch of other banter and rubbish. Also something about NASA wanting more funding to have new aircraft. They want to do away with the shuttles and everything else, and it's just a whole big bunch of waffle. There's no substance to it at all, basically. So let's see what he says next, and I'll debunk that as well.
Now, before we move on to the live ABC broadcast, I have a question. Astronauts are weightless because they're falling, right? And missing the curvature of Earth. They're falling around the curvature, which keeps them in orbit. Okay, I get that. So I wonder, why did they float on the way to the moon? Well, let's see if this educational film will help us at all. And again, I say, as I say all the time, don't trust me on any of this. You need to do your own research. Some people out there, fans of science, don't like questions being asked. They don't like you doubting or questioning the almighty NASA. But I, on the other hand, think it's quite important to ask as many questions as possible. And the first, why did they float on the way to the moon?
So this next section is just a bunch of NASA demonstration videos, just fillers to make the video longer. I don't know why he needs to make it so long, but basically that's all it is. Now, what he's going to show or try and say is that there's no way that the astronauts, when they're on the way to the moon, could have been in zero gravity because they weren't in orbit when they were travelling between the Earth and the moon. And this is absolutely correct. They were not in zero gravity when they were in transit between the Earth and the moon. But they were in fact in zero gravity when they were orbiting the Earth, getting set up to break away from the Earth's gravitational pull and head towards the moon. During that orbit, they were in zero gravity, and then they went in orbit around the moon, and they were in zero gravity at that point also. And basically, you're in zero gravity when you're in orbit because the force of gravity pulling you down is matched by the centrifugal force pulling you out, caused by the angular velocity of the rotation of the orbit. Centrifugal force being matched by gravity equals zero gravity. So a little later in the video, we'll see a rough sketch of the flight path of the lunar mission, and I'll point out when zero gravity would be occurring and when it wouldn't be occurring. But basically, he's casting doubts again, and we'll see where he goes with it.
So, I don't get it. Why do astronauts float on the way to the moon? Perhaps I missed the explanation there. So I went to Ask an Astronaut to find the answer. And the question was, if astronauts float in Earth orbit because they are falling to Earth, why do astronauts experience zero gravity en route to the moon? Thank you, Phil Gardner. The answer from the astronaut? The common situation for the astronauts is that in both cases they are in free fall, falling solely under the influence of gravity. When I was on the shuttle, I was falling around the Earth under its gravitational tug. Same for ISS astronauts today. They fall towards the center of Earth, but their speed is such that their curved falling path carries them around the curved surface of the Earth. They never hit the ground, fortunately. The Apollo astronauts, on their way to and from the moon, were still in Earth orbit, still falling around the Earth. When close to the moon, they fell under its gravitational tug and entered lunar orbit, thus falling around our natural satellite in the same way. A Mars-bound spacecraft is actually falling around the sun in a solar orbit until it encounters the gravitational field of the red planet. In each case, astronauts experience freefall.
Now, it is my feeling that Jeranism is being willfully ignorant in this section of the video, in that the astronaut that he had correspondence with didn't indicate that during the path between the Earth and the Moon there is no zero gravity. In fact, that gravity does have effect. And this is the case. It's just that the guy he spoke to assumed that Jeranism knew that for whatever reason.
So I don't get it. All we got to do is look at this. I understand orbits going around the Earth, missing the curvature. Okay, got it. But now we head off towards the moon and we're still falling around the Earth, missing the curve. I don't get it. Anybody else? Please inform me, because I think it's just...
It's okay. I'll help you out with this. So right now, in orbit, so that's zero gravity. Okay, now they would be under the influence of gravity because they're on the way to the moon, not in orbit anymore. Okay, now they're in lunar orbit, so it would be zero gravity again. And now they would be under the influence of gravity once again on the way back to Earth.
I think Lawrence Krauss best describes NASA.
And as I was saying to someone else the other day, NASA doesn't know its astronaut hole in the ground when it comes to fundamental physics. I mean, really, it embarrasses me and offends me.
Well, in reality, NASA does practical physics. This guy, theoretical physicist. What he says doesn't matter. He doesn't have to put it into practice.
Hey, that's cool. We do have something in common. It embarrasses and offends me as well.
Good for you. So at this point I get bored with the video and I skip through it. He talks about a lot of nonsensical and trivial things. What's new? To me, I just feel like, he's just not concentrating on the important details and just filling the video full of fillers to make the video longer in hope that somebody will watch it. If you want me to go over further details in this video, I will. If you want me to go over some that I may have missed in the first section, let me know in the comments section. I'm happy to do whatever is required. I will do the research. I will let you know the facts and nothing more. Have a great day. Goodbye.